The Minnesota Lynx, on purpose, made the trades that landed them a rookie all-star like Olivia Miles. They accidentally had to retool the bulk of their roster because of the new CBA, forcing the franchise into decisions they couldn't really plan for. But whether you give credit to the players, their Hall of Fame coach, or a front office that stayed ready for every curveball, the Minnesota Lynx have built the team to beat for the 2026 season. And if you zoom all the way out, this isn't even new for Minnesota. This franchise spent 8 years as a powerhouse dynasty from 2011 to 2017. So a dip was pretty much inevitable. But the upswing came so fast. Just 5 years later, they found themselves in the finals. 2024 saw the Lynx push the Liberty to 5 games, and even going into overtime before giving the Liberty their first title. The Lynx were so close they could taste that championship. And although crushed, they quickly adapted the championship mindset of getting back to the finals, but this time finished the job. But that idea, the momentum, the energy behind the push would almost immediately be hit with the first domino to fall. And that domino ended up being their franchise superstar, Napheesa Collier, getting injured. Fresh off that finals run, Minnesota entered 2025 believing they were building towards a championship window. Collier was in the middle of a pretty dominant season, the type of season you want after a finals run as a top-tier forward in this league. But then in early August, some holes started to show. On August 2nd of 2025, Collier sprained her right ankle on a fast break against the Aces. It didn't look too bad at first, but it did cost her 3 weeks and disrupted the rhythm she built as well as the Lynx. She played only 7 of the Lynx' final 15 regular season games after that. But when it rains, it pours, because just a few weeks later, in Game 3 of the semifinals, Napheesa Collier collided with Alyssa Thomas and suffered a grade 2 tear in 3 ligaments on her left ankle, plus a muscle tear in her shin. Her season was over immediately. Minnesota was eliminated in Game 4, and they needed a new game plan moving forward. Those moments wrapped together didn't just end that playoff run, it deteriorated that entire dynasty plan. At first, Napheesa Collier tried to rehab. Even publicly, we got a statement from her saying she didn't expect to need surgery. But in January, doctors recommended a full procedure. So in January of 2026, she got her first surgery on her right ankle. And in March of 2026, she had her second surgery on her left ankle. 2 major injuries, 2 surgeries, close to 10 months off the court, including the entire second season of Unrivaled and the first 27 games of the 2026 season. Minnesota had to play a pretty decent chunk of the season without their superstar, the same superstar who carried them through the finals just 2 years ago. And remember, this is just the first domino to fall, because losing Collier wasn't just a setback, it was almost a catalyst. It forced Minnesota into the retooling that they were probably hesitant to accept. It made Cheryl Reeve reshape the identity of her team, not fully changing it, because smart players, coaches, and front offices are aware of the future, and there was a new future certain for the WNBA with the looming new CBA. So Collier's injury became the spark that lit everything else on fire for the Lynx, because the moment she went down, Minnesota's entire offseason plan had to be thrown out, because as they're scrambling to figure out how to fill this hole, at least temporarily, the league's new CBA would reshape the entire financial landscape overnight. Suddenly, the Lynx weren't just dealing with losing Collier, they were dealing with a salary cap that forced everyone into hard decisions. Veteran contracts jumped, roster flexibility tightened, and Minnesota had to rebuild faster than initially expected. Not because they wanted to, but because the rules and this injury changed everything underneath it. I mean, they weren't the only team walking into 2026 with only 2 players under contract, while a humongous chunk of the league is just hitting the market, as well as the looming expansion draft that they have to deal with. So the timing couldn't have been worse, because the Lynx had to survive the WNBA expansion draft with the Portland Fire and Toronto Tempo. So they also had to have the mental capacity to navigate losing 2 players that in that point they didn't even have the rights to. And this combination of CBA and expansion draft hit Minnesota hard. They lost Bridget Carlton to the Portland Fire in the expansion draft. They lost Maria Glinadikova to the Toronto Tempo in the expansion draft. They lost the reigning co-defensive player of the year in Alana Smith to Dallas in free agency. They lost Natasha Heidemann to the Seattle Storm in free agency. They lost Jessica Shepard to the Dallas Wings and Dejanay Carrington to the Chicago Sky. That's at least 2 starters and 4 key rotation players they would lose overnight. So you had to give it to a Hall of Fame coach like Cheryl Reeve for not just recognizing that change was going to come, but accepting it when it happened and being prepared to retool her team under her leadership. Not only were they able to keep Napheesa Napheesa Collier, although for only 1 year. They were able to re-sign both Kayla McBride and Courtney Williams. Very important veteran stability on this roster. They pulled a free agency move and was able to pull in Natasha Howard, Nia Coffey, Maya Caldwell, and some international depth, ending up with a roster that was a little more experienced, a little more flexible, and a bit more dynamic, secretly working in their favor for the players that were still hungry to be solid rotation players. Cheryl Reeve went out and picked up players that were going to run through walls, not just for her, but for those players' ability to stay in a league with a new salary structure. So she was almost guaranteed to get good production out of Nia Coffey, Maya Caldwell, and Liatu King, a later season add. They would also somehow swindle into this new roster a number 2 pick in Olivia Miles. So as free agency is unfolding, the departures are stacking up, eyes are on Minnesota. They didn't blink because somehow they were sitting on the number 2 pick, and you couldn't even pretend she just fell into their lap. This was a 2-step, 2-year front office bet that started back in 2024, the year of that initial disappointment. Chicago wanted Angel Reese at number 7. To get there, they sent Minnesota this draft package that included a first-round 2026 pick swap. So when Chicago took Angel Reese, the Minnesota Lynx took Alyssa Pilley at number 8. Now fast forward to 2025 draft day. Both teams agreed to a new deal. Minnesota will give Chicago the number 11 pick, and Chicago gave Minnesota their 2026 first-round pick outright. No swap, no conditions. Minnesota just owns it clean. Then Chicago has an absolutely horrid season, and that pick becomes lottery gold. Minnesota entered the lottery with a 28.5% chance at number 2. Dallas takes AZ Fudd, and Minnesota lands with Olivia Miles. This was a long-term bet the front office made back when Napheesa Collier went down, and now it was fully paying off, because not only did Olivia Miles just fit into this new Minnesota Lynx team, she transforms it, a rookie completely integrating into the pros. She almost immediately sped up the pace of this team, made sure they were getting better shots, and lowered the turnovers, and more importantly, allowed the other players on the team to just play their roles. Courtney Williams got to move from the 1 to the 2. Playing that shooting guard, she's absolutely exploded in points and efficiency and general just looseness on the floor, playing a role she's more comfortable with. And the same thing goes for Kayla McBride. While she slightly struggled in the beginning of the season because she was returning from injury as well, she's caught her bearings playing with this superstar point guard and also realizing she only has to do her job, and that's made her more efficient and her more confident in her position. That's how you get a game where she's in flow and comfortable enough to sink 10 threes, breaking the record with a team already in its stride. She was obviously feeling it. Some of these threes were completely contested, but she got them in the flow of the game, from her point guard reading the floor and understanding she was in her flow, to Courtney Williams running the floor and making sure Kayla McBride still got the ball. This is the team coming to form without them even knowing it was going to click this well. This team ended up with the best record in the league without Napheesa Collier, and she ends up coming full circle as the last domino to fall, because she returned healthy, rested, and ready to a team that had already been shaping the identity she had to walk back into, the one she was fully a part of from the beginning, but now she gets to come in and smooth out the edges, recognizing everyone else has their job down pat. And she didn't come back timid. She didn't come back trying to slowly get back into the action, allow the rookie and the other players that have been playing all season to get used to her. No, she came in ready, immediately dropping 24 points and 10 rebounds, coming back after All-Star to win 2 straight games against Toronto, getting 15 points, 16 points, even threw in a couple of blocks for good measure. She came back to her team just like everybody else, only needing to do her job. And at the center of it all was Cheryl Reeve, the Hall of Fame coach with 4 championships, 4 Coach of the Year awards, the most wins in league history, and a reputation for building systems that outlast the nonsense. She didn't just guide the Lynx through this chaos. She engineered the stability they needed to ride it out. The roster she built by necessity now looks like a genius that knew what she was doing the entire time. Like she was fully aware these slight changes would unlock those last bits of percentages out of Williams and McBride. The intentional depth roles she identified in players she wanted on her roster. And really a franchise that has stood behind her this entire time, trusting her abilities and decision making. All this together kept the Lynx winning, kept them dangerous, kept them at the top of the standings, letting all the little things fall into place. And this is how you build a dynasty. I would say this is the beginning of a new dynasty, but the truth is a lot tougher than that. We don't know if Napheesa Collier is one 100% happy in Minnesota. We don't know how long Courtney Williams and Kayla McBride want to or can keep grinding at this level. We don't know how long Olivia Miles will be willing to carry a franchise through a rebuild once these veterans age out. The timelines don't match. The futures don't perfectly align. And that's exactly why a championship right now would mean everything. For Napheesa Collier, a title would be a clean ending she deserves. A ring, no regrets, and the freedom to choose her next chapter without guilt. For the Lynx, that's a championship, a validation for all the chaos, the injury, the CBA churn, retooling, the Miles pick, and it would give them permission to rebuild without feeling like they wasted anyone's prime or anyone's time. For Kayla McBride and Courtney Williams, a title would be the perfect veteran payoff, the chance to walk away champions or even stay as bench leaders without the pressure of carrying the franchise. For Olivia Miles, a ring this early would be a launch pad, proof she can win before she ever has to navigate the hard and tough years of rebuilding a team. And then for Cheryl Reeve, a Hall of Fame coach, the 4-time champion, the winningest coach in history, a championship with this iteration of the Lynx would cement her legacy even further. A dynasty in the 2010s, a finals run in the 2020s, and a title with a roster built from chaos, youth, and resilience. A championship right now wouldn't just be a trophy, it would be closure, validation, a clean handoff between eras. The end of one Lynx story and the beginning of whatever comes next. Accidentally, on purpose, the Lynx have built the team to beat, and if they finish the job, it might be the perfect ending for everyone involved.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, players.